Hello, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Everything Meta. I am very happy to have on a great week where the market's turning none other than Mr. Peyote. How are you?
Hey, Ken, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Cool.
Now, as always, I have a track, and I haven't given you the full details of where this is going, but just follow me, work with me, we'll get there. Is
Cool.
there anything that you've noticed over time about the anatomy of a project that you've been part of incubating or early investor in that has given signs of being more successful versus less successful?
Hey, you know what? Actually, we can start over, right? Just because your mic is like
it's doing that thing again.
Yeah, pretty.
I turned the settings up. Okay, hold on. Let me try the settings again.
We can just keep rolling. No biggie.
Let me see. How about now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Night and day, dude. Night and day.
It's funny because last time I turned those things off and it was better.
Oh.
And so I turned them off this time to start with, and I just turned them back on, and whatever. So if you hear it, just let me know, and I'll just do the opposite.
No, yeah, it sounds good. Should we just keep it rolling? Let's just start. Let's just keep it going.
All right, cool. So yeah, let's talk about that.
Noticed over time, something like that.
Yeah, notice what have you noticed with regard to like a successful project from the beginning? You're in early on projects. I mean, you've been a part of a lot of launches, obviously.
Yeah.
And you probably look at a project and say, hey, they're going to get a chance, but I'm not so sure. Like there's this thing that I've noticed maybe they don't have the it. What is that thing?
Okay, so this is pretty interesting. There's so many factors. Are you talking about just in terms like a moonshot? Like what sort of factors something would have for a moonshot, essentially?
I mean, that's always the goal, but I mean, even long-term sustainability, just generally speaking, in my experience, or if you're not reaching certain milestones, it's like the disinterest happens from both ends, seemingly, like the investors and the team, and eventually the project just kind of goes stagnant. So if you're not making money, then the project kind of falls off anyway. So like, what are you, what have you seen that has been the common factor of those successful projects?
Okay, well, I'll liken it to Yasha and Neko. Okay, I think those two are so for instance, for Yasha, you have a large group of people, okay, like a large team that's actually working on the project. You can like rest assured that like people are working around the clock trying to make stuff happen.
True.
Then you look at the execution of their work, and it's, I mean, nobody can really say anything, about it, right? Like you have Z busting out code and managing development teams. You have D running around managing a lot of operations. You have T, like gluing everything together. Tim Tam, Optimus, Sam, Talk. You have this a large team all pretty much doing what they're supposed to be doing. Okay, so that's like first and foremost. Then you have a lot of human capital. You have a positive core community. Obviously, not everybody always wins. Okay, but and sometimes people are restricted, right, from entering certain pre-sales or pre-TGE contributions or whatever it is. So I would say like consistency of work, right? There's never like a time where something is not coming up for Yasha. There's something always coming up for Yasha. There's always something. Right. And if we're not coming up with something, people are pitching things to do for Yasha. Okay, so that's first and foremost, right? The price action of Yasha is irrespective of the amount of value that it provides to people that want to participate. But in a project like Yasha, you have to participate to sort of extract that value out of it. If you're not participating, like there was one guy that's like, I bought this back in December. What's going on? Why is the price not doing anything? There's low vol, and I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, like you missed out on like 1600x worth of pre-sale launches.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Whether people sell the absolute tippy top or not, I don't know. It's not something that we can control. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, but like at least some cash. Like if you have a job, and you're making $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month or something, right? And you can add like an extra, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 a month, or an
Sure.
extra $100 a day. You know what I mean? An extra
Yeah.
one BNB per day. It it's really not so bad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you're just adding some additional revenue. Okay, so that like the combination of those things, I think, has given Yasha its longevity. I think that it's here to stay. I
Mm,
think that it will continue to launch good projects and continue to raise money and incubate projects. Right. So that's something. I think that's like a comfortable hold, not financial advice. You're asking on what the mix is, right?
right.
Now the key component is always going to be the community, right? And having some value from that token, that utility that the token provides, where it's like, you know what, I don't even have to sell this. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
I get all this, you can get all this stuff anyway. Like what's the
yeah.
doesn't even matter. And so that sort of goes the same for the Neko project, right? When you look at Neko, you have an amazing community. You have like a real life product, right? You have benefits back to the holders based on their work, not the work of others per
Mm,
se, right? Um, and it's a good project that people depending on adoption and community support and whatnot, it's a product that people should be able to use, right? They're using a very similar product already. Uh, this one is just like a little bit better, you
sure.
know, and has a good community behind it, right? So okay, so you have that mix of things. If I'm on the lookout for a project, okay, it's oh goodness, you want to see how well capitalized the team is, right? Okay, how well capitalized is the team? How well capitalized is the project? Do they have enough funds? Right. Otherwise, it's a bit of a gamble because you have projects out there. Um, this is where the devs just like buy and buy and buy and buy, and you just see the candle, just running up, and a huge part of that is grabbing grabbing a lot of supply, and so that there's not a ton of circulating supply that can create price impact on sales.
Sure.
So that's a huge thing. I mean, that's like one of the things that you've been kind of noticing with Voodoo, right? Just despite the max sell type thing, there's a fair amount of supply in with people that are just not going to sell or do so strategically, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and so then there's really not a ton of supply left to create a lot of price impact, right, from sales. So there's that. So team, how well capitalized is the team, right? Uh, I don't buy into like connections. I think marketing connections is weak. You know what I mean? Like it's
Why?
can you
Why so?
I just think that it's like I wouldn't say like a braggadocious type of strategy. You know what I mean? But it's like I don't know. Look, man, we're both here. We're both human beings. We're both wearing. Like we don't have a ton of drip on. There's nothing to show off. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have.
Yeah.
I just never buy into that sort of thing. I think some connections are good, but like those advisors and whatnot, that CEO or whoever has to get them to work. But I wouldn't buy a project just because like a dev comes in and says like, oh, like connected to this or connected to that, or it's like marketing connections is just another way to speculate on what maybe could happen, right? Like unless you see them doing work, that's another story altogether. um I, the influencer stuff, you know I don't know. I think that it's very good for exposure, and a lot of these guys that are giving the exposure, really good dudes. But at the same time, expect that influencers following to create a pretty sizable amount of rotation, right?
Mm.
Because there's always going to be another project that's going to be pumping. Yeah, and they'll call that or make a video about that, and it'll run. I'll tell you what, Scott is such a gem. He he's like he works so hard. He works so hard. Like I looked at he's working on the WAGMI project. I should
Mm.
bring him on here to have
Sure.
him give some updates on what he's been up to. But like that chart they migrated, and the chart is just like just
Mm.
straight to Earth's core. You know what I mean? And the people that bought the top, it's the same as any other project. People that buy the top are down like bigly, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, and he's just he's just working and working, working, and I think that's super cool. So like things like that, I think where you have teams that work despite the circumstances and whatnot, similar to some of our stuff. Um, and you never know. Like there's other projects, and I know I'm rambling a bit here. So if you want to
It's fine.
organize,
No. Yeah. I got it.
yeah, like for instance, the Pochi project. Man, I don't know if it got sniped. I don't know if people just wanted the launch and then boom, exit. I don't know if it just went parabolic way too quickly. I have I have no idea. I
Mm.
have no idea. But I think that this is weird. I think that it's bullish. You know? Like, I think that the project is bullish. That like AG is so smart. Docty is such a little stud. MCO's such amazing developer. I think that if they get it down pat, I think that they can sell a lot of Poachy dogs.
Yeah.
That's the goal of the project, right? Create like sort of a new model for NFTs, or follow a more traditional e-com style model for NFTs with ads, targeted ads, and conversions to sell a digital metaverse pet,
Mm.
right? That will
Mm.
grow and whatnot. And then the token is used to essentially sustain its livelihood. So it is like a bit of a hyper deflationary token. It, it launching like that, although it's really cool to launch like a 100x and it goes just straight, to $20 million market cap. Inevitably, the people that buy on the way up there, that whoever gets in very early is up 100x. They put in 1 ETH at the start, they're up 100x. They're gonna
Mm.
sell.
Yeah.
They're gonna sell. um the some of the pre-salers are amazing holders because they're like back to even.
Mm.
That's another thing that people don't necessarily realize. I don't think that there's any pre-TGE contribution allocation that's actually red right now. I could be wrong. I think maybe pause. You know, Another one, very bullish project, goes up, goes down, really sad. I think and there's other things like the monkey launch, right? It was doing amazing. It was doing amazing. And these things in their very early stage, um, man, like some stuff like Monkey had an insane community. It was visible. A lot of people saw Monkey. Okay. It did very, very well. You have one guy that maybe should not be playing around in tiny liquidity pools, because
Yeah.
he bought 70 ETH of
Yeah.
Monkey,
Yeah.
and then was like, oh, you know what, I have to cover this short, and then ended up having to sell like 50 ETH on the way down, like 3 ETH every few hours, and it just destroyed. I mean, it I think that the community can bring it back. You know what I mean? Like, I actually do. I think that the NFTs are very cool. It's the Monkey is in a game now. Um, you know what I mean? It's possible that the community can bring it back. But yeah, if you have like one very, rich person, and they trade micro caps, the same way that they trade ETH, buy 1,000, sell 1,000, buy 1,000, sell 1,000. That's a huge liquidity pool. Like ETH USD is a
Right.
huge liquidity pool. Like, they're not, yeah.
Their impact is much less
Oh,
on, yeah,
yeah, I
compared
mean,
to,
they're a bull
right.
in a china shop, dude, like,
Yeah.
in a micro cap. And yeah, if you have a situation like that, there's nothing that anybody can do, dude. Like, any dude, like, if there's a project you don't like out there, anybody can just go buy 100 ETH of it at, like, around the top, and then just make the chart look very bullish. They're gonna take a loss, obviously. They're gonna lose money doing it, but anybody can really kinda go do that. What you know? So, it it
I'm an
is.
advocate. One of the things I want to do, and I keep reiterating this, is I want to make sure that as people are listening, people with various levels of experience and skill, they listen to us and they start to kind of put two and two together and understand how they can exist in the crypto space. So I often advocate for reflections, meaning some form of return of either the native token or some other stable coin. Specifically, I like reflections in the native token. I think in that case, and I'm asking you, what do you think? I think reflections with Monkey would have been a game changer.
Mm,
Um, and or I'm sorry, reflections in the native token, or a a continued burn, a burn mechanism that existed past that first half that was burnt at launch, if you will,
mm.
right? Because then as all the activity that we had, all the what am I trying to say?
Volume?
The volume. Thank you. All the volume that was there would have depleted the supply, and I think is as that community was growing, with less supply for other people to manipulate, or even to say, once this guy sells 50 ETH, the tokens are going back in the hands of other folks who are wanting to hold it.
Right. Well, okay, so it goes both ways. It has reflections in USDC, right?
Yeah,
So technically, the same amount of value in tokens was reflected back in USDC, right?
fair. Yep.
They could have bought the token on the low with those USDC reflections. Conversely, if they got reflections in the native token, right, then they could have sold those reflections as well and added to a downtrend, right? Um, I do think that the, the original Yasha contract was hyper deflationary, right? It was every transaction was essentially burning like 8% of the supply.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, huge amount of the supply. So, I mean, that ended up working out. When it was all said and done, there was an original 10% burn, and then about 25% of the supply had been burned through trading activity, right?
sure.
Um, and then there was some reflections back to the holders as well. And I think
Yeah,
that deflationary type thing helps a lot, right? So,
yeah,
um, yeah. So I've seen it. I've seen it work. Neko is built that way. Percentage of every transaction, right, is reflected. I think maybe it's just on sales. And some of the reflections, there's a large locker contract called Lucky's Vault, and that receives the reflections, right, of you know, and so they're locked away, right? Like so that there
Yeah.
is some deflationary reasoning behind there, and I'm not sure what the max. I'll look here really fast because I haven't looked in a while on what the actual max is on it. Nice. Market is looking actually pretty good. Holders. Okay, so Lucky's Vault has 36% of the supply right now.
Wow. That's good. It's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really not so bad. So, and that is, yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. you know,
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
I'm always
So
just trying to figure out a way to create a scenario under which the distribution continues to go. The tokens are being held by people who want to hold them. When some people exit, I mean, I agree. I thought that the USDC, any opportunity where I can hold and still monetize my investment, I think is the greatest thing that you can do for a project, right? Incentivize people to hold and still pay them. I wonder whether there should have maybe, I don't even know if this is possible, but perhaps both reflection types. That way, you're holding, your bag's getting bigger, even when other people sell. And on top of that, you're still getting paid in the USDC.
you just have a
Yeah,
high, you have a relatively high tax, right?
yeah,
The other thing you can do is offer opportunities, right? So that's where Yasha kind of comes in, right? Is the token offers opportunities to access things that might be beneficial, might or might
yeah,
not be beneficial.
for sure. Yeah,
And so holding the token is actually, I mean, like unless you really need the cash, like holding the token is like kind of a no brain a no
absolutely.
brainer. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like it keeps producing.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, for sure. But that makes Yasha's unique in that way. I mean, in its capacity as an incubator, right? It does have this value that it can offer month over month. But what about your average project? I mean, what characteristics? Let's talk about team size. Do you think that it matters if a person is coming in as just a solo, an individual who wants to create a project?
I think it's
Um,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay. What
Yeah.
about?
I think it's
Good.
fine. Yeah, because like the I mean, it really depends on what the project does, right? If they're building something, right? If they're building something let's take D tools for instance, right? That developer is obviously very talented, right? And he's building all the time. Like, there's a few projects out there with super talented developers that are basically the core, and it's really going to be up to the community or people coming on to push that. And it always comes down to that at the end of the day as well. I mean, it's always going to
Mm,
come down to that. So I think, yeah, one developer, and I don't know the structure of that team or some of these other teams that I'm thinking about, but one developer is just fine as long as they can, get some eyes on the project and get some exposure and push it out, right?
yeah, makes sense. So you mentioned the capital P. What does someone, and this is where all this is going. What does someone need when they show up to Yasha or to Science DAO? And I'm asking specifically because, more specifically with Science DAO, you're the point of one of the goals of this DeSci experience or experiment is to get people out of their labs and into a different space on the blockchain where they may not understand all the ins and outs, right? But people who may be very great in one aspect of their work might be clueless as it pertains to uh, what it is that the Science DAO does, right? And so you're always open to pitches. You're saying, bring us, if you have work, bring it to us. We're creating a portal to make it simple to submit, but I want to really drive home what a person feels like they'll need when they show up, and what it is that they'll be provided, and what their best chances of success are, to even be considered for their project.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't speak for others, right? But like the team, the founders, right, are probably the most heavily scrutinized, right? If there is a
Mm,
path forward, if you can see a path forward, it's going to come down to the founders, right? And whether they can execute on that or not,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So it like there could be one founder that's the chief medical officer, right? And invents something that has a path forward. Can he find the right mix of people to fully realize the commercialization of whatever he's working on? And that's really what we're going to be looking at. Coming in.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would say that if you have a deck and you see a path forward, it's always going to be your job pitching, I think, to sort of create a bit of FOMO. Create a bit of FOMO on the fact that you can illustrate that your path forward makes like a lot of sense. Once a VC or seed investor or whatnot can grasp the path forward, right? Can grasp the path forward, then it's it's pretty easy, I think, at that point to maybe, well, maybe not easy, but to create some FOMO. If the reward is so great, then you can make some FOMO, right? Like, for instance, if I was pitching Yasha, right, I would say,
Mm-hmm,
hey, like there's people out there that they launch projects, right? There's launch pads out there. What do these launch pads do? Well, like, this launch pad and this launch pad, um, have been able to launch this many projects, and this is like the type of income or whatever that you can generate from launching those projects, right? And it should make sense, right? There is a path. It's been done before. It's not reinventing the wheel, right? And so then, can we show, does the seed investor have enough confidence in myself or in the team or the founders or whoever, um, that we can take it to having a functional system or whatever it might be, to where
mm-hmm,
the project can, the launch pad can be fully realized, right? Um, the FOMO component of that is that, like, those seed people can get in on all these launches, right?
right.
Um, the reputable bit or the confidence bit is always going to come from the founders, right? And if it's clearly illustrated the path going forward, then everything should be like pretty clear and understood, right? So I think that if you can combine some of those aspects, if you can combine those things sort of together, then it's you can have a pretty good pitch. But remember, like, the idea of the pitch is always going to be creating a bit of FOMO.
Sure.
I think people don't realize that. They're like, here's the market size, right? Like, here's the that, I think that's the secret sauce, dude, to be honest. If
Yeah.
you're an entrepreneur out there, you like startups and you're pitching, I think the secret sauce is being able to create FOMO, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I think that, or getting the people that are looking at the pitch to believe that you can walk that path forward, right? Because you see tons of cool pitches out there that are like, and they're technical. They're a lot of times they're technical. They have market data, they have potential revenue out there in the future. People work really hard on their spreadsheets and whatnot, and like it, if you can just add a little FOMO into there, people are probably gonna give you money, in
Sure.
a seed stage. If there's no FOMO, they're just looking at data and numbers and pictures and descriptions. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's not going to be a ton of FOMO, right? So
that makes sense. So with that, let's talk about the difference between Yasha as a DAO and the Science DAO. First of
yeah.
all, let's go back. How do we get two DAOs?
Oh, like why is there two DAOs?
Yeah,
Yeah, so the Science DAO obviously is a bit of it's a different target. If you look inside of Yasha, okay, it's hard to say that something that incubates or helps launch a project about a red dog, right, is gonna be qualified to incubate or create an investable vehicle for like Dr. Jaume's project, right, which is curing diabetes. Combining the two is tough.
yeah,
It is, dude. Like it's
yeah.
tough. Like one, there's AI, machine learning on Science DAO, and there's
NFTs and dogs and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
got it.
I think Yasha has the ability to raise and be part of any type of project out there. You know what I mean? But like all of the projects that Yasha has launched, right? Save maybe the Neko project, um, is not in the wheelhouse of the science stuff. If you look at some of the people that have come on, they're the Twitter space and the people that Mike has been reaching out to, um, it's it, you have Mars rover person, you have uh, directors of departments at university, like it's the amount of stickers, the amount of gifts, the amount of spamming for shitcoin culture
Yeah.
uh that happens in Yasha and some of these launches and stuff. It's not really the right flavor. So originally we were gonna only do Discord, so we should probably double check in with Steven.
Yeah,
We put a lot on him. Poor
yeah,
guy. He's probably like, God, it's like, but yeah, I mean, it's always going to come down on how bad somebody wants it, team, how bad team wants it, and what they're up to. So yeah, I think Science DAO has a really bright future. It's an amazing, in a way, it's although it seems like lately it's like all people do is sell the token.
right.
uh,
Yeah,
it's actually kind of nice to just build in the bear market, in a bearish trend in the market. And then
mm,
hopefully everything is set up and we have funded the cure for diabetes and we have an AI machine learning arbitrage trading bot and maybe several other very cool projects that the Science DAO people have been involved with. Um, and it's ready for the bull run. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And at that point, it's like, what other project out there is like has essentially non-fungible shares available in certain incubated or accelerated or seed invested projects that it's involved with, right? And what other project out there has similar types of deal flow? Like I would laugh, and I don't know, I could be the butt of the joke, you know what I mean? If we're
mm,
not able to execute on some of these things, but also if we get in seed stage for a cure for a disease, a biotech, biopharma type startup, a very
mm,
early stage, and it's able to prove it's commercial viability, and it's it's able to prove its concept that its cures and theories work. And we go to that Series D, and they're raising 100 mil, and and their new valuation is 500 million, and then we go IPO, and Moderna hit 195 billion
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah,
dollar market cap. You know
yeah,
what I mean? It's uh, so
yeah,
if we get there, I don't care all these people that are exiting early. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah, all the people that are exiting early and whatnot. If you know, if we're able to find the holy grail biopharma, or Tesla stock, or SpaceX, or whatever it might be, that's
yeah,
the goal. I mean, when you look at the panel, when when you look at the panel, you have like multiple Microsoft senior executives, you have directors for uh, you know uh, like multiple research labs. You have Michael, he's senior vice president EA. Like, you have like this stellar panel. If we can't all find a good deal that's investable, and make it benefit the Science DAO. If there's a group out there that can find and get the next.
you froze for a second. You said if
Yeah,
there's a
we
group
both
out
bro
there that can
if
find,
there's a group out there that can go and accumulate through their network the deal flow to be able to find, like, a SpaceX, or a Facebook,
yeah,
a Twitter, or something in the traditional finance or private equity type world. I feel like this group could do. I mean, many of them have had multiple high dollar exits, right?
mm,
Multiple high dollar exits, um, and so yeah, I think I think that it's legit. The Science DAO, I think it's legit. So yeah. Anyway, if it doesn't matter. Like, some people need $1,000, some people need 5,000, some people need $200, and they need it now. You know what I mean? Um, the DAO will decide if it disqualifies them from participating in, like, a potential Moderna that could have changed their life.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's one of it's one of those things, like, back in the beginning of Yasha. Yeah, obviously we have an audit team. They're monitoring buying and selling. They try to make the pre-sale wallets like really good, so that it's like a very good group of people. You know what I mean? And I think that they've gotten better and better and better at it. And initially getting that Cliff group, that Guzzler group, whatever it might be, it's like pretty good pickings, because a lot of these projects did very well, in terms of price action, right? The rest is going to come. And man, you know what? Shout out to Guzzler crew. We should do an episode on Guzzler here coming up soon, because I opened the app up for the first time the other day. Somebody was like asking me how it's going. I was like, yeah, it's on iOS, or the beta version's on iOS. I open it up. There's like completely new UI for the garage and everything. Like, you press the button,
really.
the cars they swoop in. I'm like, oh my goodness, I haven't looked at this. And I took a little screen record. I'm like, here's the video game, and they were like, wow, like, it
Yeah,
looks legit. It looks legit,
really cool.
yeah, so pretty
Yeah,
exciting. And then I like, now that we're here, market has turned a bit bearish. I think, like, less focused on selling NFTs, more focused on acquiring users through free NFTs. I think that is kind of cool that way. Like, to play the game, you don't need to spend a ton of money, but if you want like a cool NFT car, you're gonna have to pay. And the people that are playing the game, that are involved in the ecosystem, right, of the Guzzler Studios and whatnot, they are always winning, new rare NFTs that they can add on to whatever, right? So
Right.
it's pretty cool. I should probably do a I should probably do some type of VC some type of VC or something coming up here.
Yeah.
I love that project. This is probably my favorite project because it's
Yeah.
fun. The only non-fun part about it is like if people buy the top and then sell the bottom and buy high and sell low all the time. That's the only part that's not fun. About some of these projects is that like maybe people have the you know the ability to lose, but if they're there to and we don't control, man, that's the other thing is we don't control. I think a project can do just fine, and I think that it can do just fine without any you know uh huge parabolic price action right from the beginning, right? Like it's hard. Like when if you go up and you're going up, and then you go down and consolidate, and then you go up, maybe you break all-time high, and then you go down and consolidate, and you kind of work in that manner. You know what I mean? Then you have good redistribution. If you just immediately go parabolic, it's going to break out of that arc and then consolidate for a while, and then to re-break all-time high, you're going to need another parabola, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's gonna be fucking hard, dude.
Yeah. A project to go parabolic multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and that they do, they
Yeah.
do. They're like, here, we're in the second arc,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
So full circle. Let's compare Voodoo to Cliff. It's the
Sure.
obvious compare. I think Cliff is always, not just because I have a Cliff bias. I think Cliff is always the obvious comparison because of what it did in the period of time it did. Um,
Cliff had a
eh,
very memeable character, right? Very
yeah.
memeable character. It achieved virality essentially, right?
Yeah.
It went viral.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's totally different. If something can go viral, then that's you know
So Voodoo,
yeah.
what was the uh, idea behind the name or the character, or is it just meant to be the mystique and the mystery and
No, there's just there's like a group of people, there's a dev team. There's a group of private people that are very experienced and have a lot of money.
yeah,
And I think just one of them liked the name Voodoo. Um, you know, yeah. They like the logo. A lot of times we just go on logo grounds and go
yeah,
find a logo, and they like that voodoo doll logo, and there was voodoo, you know. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
What do you think
I
about the supply,
it
the
this
overall supply? Yeah,
like the number of
the
tokens.
billion, yeah, the billion tokens.
I think it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's great.
yeah.
I mean,
Supply doesn't matter. It's all ratios. It's all percentages and ratios. Like technically, like supply doesn't factor into almost anything, right? Because they're fraction, like they're all decimal. They all have decimal points, and so it's all going to break down into some type of percentage of whatever the total supply is, right? And that's how you get what the actual the actual fully diluted market cap is. The only thing that I ever go by, because that's what the price per token is. I know that I have this many tokens and this is the price. That's it's fully diluted. Especially with these hyper deflationary projects, it's always burning. You know what I mean? It's always burning. And so like you're never really going after like true market cap, or circulating supply market cap, because that's
yeah,
if you take your tokens and you multiply it by that, you're not going to get the amount of money that you have, right? You have to go against the price, so it's
sure.
yeah.
But I mean, to your point, or maybe a counter to that point, is the barrier or the way that we conceive of, or I'm going to say me, I won't say we. The way I look at a project and I say, okay, how far is it from certain milestones. Win penny, win 10 cents,
Mm.
win dollar, right? When you start off
Oh, shit.
with two zeros,
Yeah.
and like two zeros one, if it's two zeros one now, I mean, not start off, but that's where we are now. Two zeros one, like almost two zeros two. So now I'm thinking, because of the supply, we're not extremely far away from penny. Win penny soon. $10 million market cap doesn't seem hard to wrap your
Oh,
mind around,
at 10.
right?
You know what? I'll tell you what. 10 is super easy
Yeah,
on this
right.
one. Yeah, 10
Yeah,
is like right there. It just depends. Nobody wants to push to 10 and just get dumped on, right? So it really
right.
depends on what the community does. And once the community, gets going, there's people to help support the community. There's people lurking that will help.
Yeah,
But if it's just a matter of like sending it to 10, it's like nobody really feels like doing that, right? So
yeah. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is with the supply, and obviously factoring in what the uh, opening price was, but we're at a point where, because of where the supply is, we are very close to that 1 cent, that 10 cent. People will be motivated to keep trying to get to that next 1 cent, 10 cent, $1, right? Um,
man, you know what? I've never thought of it like that.
yeah,
Yeah, you might be onto something if that is like the how the general y- you know population. But look, you're becoming a crypto influencer, so I I don't really know how people think about that sort of thing. I don't think of it like that. I think in terms of millions, right? Like the other day
yeah,
you saw it go from 1 million to 3 million.
right,
How many ETH or BNB does it take to traverse those millions of market cap? That's why I'm always like wondering sometimes when you see a really cool project and it's just like it's just like sitting at a million, and you know that there's like a good dev team,
yeah,
like, it's not that crazy, like, to just send it up. I know, I've seen some other, developers out there, shout out Apollo Dev. That guy is like a mega chad, and it's just pure speculation on my part. I don't know if it's actually him, buying 200 ETH at a time and stuff, but
wow, yeah,
but Giga Chad, I mean, he's just like, "Hey, we're here." He sets a price target and just starts aping.
yeah,
Another one is that Alpha Dev. Shout out Don. God, I don't know what to do. I don't know how you get. I don't know what it is, but he's just like, let's just keep going. It's just going, and that's how we are a lot of the times too.
mm,
But it's like, sure, people just take that opportunity. I see it in chats. You know what I mean? Little private chats and stuff. People are like, "Oh, they're buying, let's sell." I don't know how we found attracted those guys. They should go to over to some of these other people that like to send their tokens up. Like we want people that want to go for the ride, not just like find the opportunity to sell all the time, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it can go both ways. You know what I mean? It can go both ways, right? So it's I don't know. Is what it is.
So how do you do that? What's the secret? I mean, I think if you're watching critically, you notice every project um, recently has had just a little twist. I can see the experimentation um, in the launches of these projects, and then, where there's some new aspect to it to uh, maybe see how you can improve retention, or how you can um, reduce I don't know, just people selling in general, or selling more methodically. I mean, so in this case it's coded in where one cannot, it's the best thing we can do in this case is not trust humans to be human, and just
Bro, it's
enforce
not
them.
even it's not my idea, okay? But
Yeah,
I'll tell you, there's one super based individual that's just like, just let them sell. He's like, I'll buy all of it after they sell.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But it's like, I don't know. There's that's the thing. You can't tell, like, not everybody is going to be completely on board with the plan. Like, you'll see when you're in there trying to rally the troops in your private group to get on board with a specific thing. There's always going to be some that are like, all right, you know, and
Yeah,
then there's going to be like 100 people that aren't even going to write a message. You know what I'm saying?
for sure.
Yeah, and then maybe there's some people in there with like 3 different screen names. You know what I mean? So they might all say yes. They might they might all say yes, So it's
Yeah,
bro, we have crazy people. That's why the tier system now, it does not favor. I mean, unfortunately, I wish, like, there's definitely things that would have been done different, right? With theory and distribution and whatnot. But like, if you saw, there's people that are just accumulating. I mean, I don't know how many there's, we know of a few, because there's like IP addresses and all sorts of stuff. So we know like
yeah.
how many screen names some people have. It's like crazy. They got like one board cliff for every single one of their profile pictures. I'm like, holy shit. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
right.
Yeah.
Uh, hey, I can't complain. That at least means they're participating more than most. There's
Yeah.
always a positive spin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So, in conclusion, the anatomy of a project that's going to be successful.
Yeah.
Uh, you need to have a good team, solid team. When you're making a pitch, there should be something that generates FOMO. You don't just want to go through facts and figures. You should have an appropriate level of resources. Um, although there are resources available, um, for you. What does someone's technical background have to be?
It depends what your function is, right? I don't have a huge technical background, right?
Yeah.
um I can write out the logic. A lot of times these requirement documents and what the smart contract is supposed to do, I write like the whole thing out, the logic of everything out in English,
Hmm.
and then they translate over. You don't have to be super technical. Doesn't have a huge technical background. T doesn't have a huge technical background. Z has a technical background.
Hmm.
So if you're trying to make a well-rounded group, I think that's usually where it is. Um, I think you'd be good, personally, just because maybe you can articulate and speak so that people want to see what happens, right? I think that's one thing that Anthony has in the peace project, right? Is
Yeah. Yeah.
he's a great orator, great public speaker, and can get people, although it's a very specific style. You know what I mean? A very
Yeah.
specific style of speech. I think that it resonates with a lot of people as well, because
For
it's
sure.
real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that people can tell that. Um, it really depends on, yeah. I mean, stuff like that. So
Yeah. Well, as always, I thank you for your time, and I know we're right up against the clock.
yeah,
So if you got nothing else, I'm going to sign us out of here, and we will live to see another day.
right on, guys.
Take care. Where are we? This is always the fun end of video. Awkward
Are
pause.
we still going?
We're still going. But you have to double